Well, I mean, just off the top of my head. Is he any good around the house? I mean, is he going to put laundry detergent in the dishwasher?
Of course he would. He knows what he's doing. No, Tony, I meant more personal things. You know, the kind of qualities that you would look for in a husband.
Oh, well, so then, how is he in the garage?
The garage?
Yeah, you know, a man should be able to fulfill your automotive needs.
There's no problem there. He has his own metric toolkit.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to...
The
Who's the Boss podcast. I'm Tori.
And I'm Kevin.
And we are here to rewatch and discuss every single episode of Who's the Boss. So I have a tiny bit of news. That's where you say, really?
Oh, yeah, right. Really?
A couple of Sundays ago, a couple of Sundays ago, I watched an online screening of a musical parody called Who's Da Boss? And it is just like completely raunchy and ridiculous and hilarious. And Danny Pintauro is one of the cast members. So there's Jackie Beat, Mario Diaz, Sherry Vine, Nadia Ginsburg, and Roz Dresfales. And most of them are doing this in drag, and Danny plays himself as a 6-year-old boy. And so he's playing Jonathan, but he's playing a gay version of Jonathan.
Funny.
They kind of rewrote the script a bit, and it's sort of like the joke is that nobody realizes how gay Jonathan is, even though Jonathan is really gay. But it was a lot of fun. And so then afterwards, they did like a Q&A with the cast members. And they brought up the Who's the Boss reboot, and Danny says that it is happening. It is just in the very early stages.
Okay.
And it does appear that he is involved.
Yeah.
And
yeah, because he knows about it. No, I mean, he knows.
Right, he knows
like he knows what's going on.
Yeah, no, I mean, he didn't outright say that like he's going to be in it, but on Twitter he had said he would be involved. And then one of the other cast members was like, well, we need gay Jonathan. And he is on board with that. So I am on board with that.
I am too. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, because they said, you know, like, this is a perfect way to show some diversity and inclusivity on a TV show that did not have that. And I think now is really a good time to do it. And I know Jonathan was presented to us as a heterosexual character, but he was also presented to us as a child.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, many people have different journeys, and his journey could have been that he did not realize it until he was older. So they were also joking, you know, that we should be making some buzz out there about the Who's the Boss reboot, because there hasn't been a lot of news. So
no, not in a while.
Yeah, so let's do it. You know, I mean, if you're tweeting or whatever, just tag some people and tweet
away
about gay Jonathan.
Yeah.
I think that we need to meet Jonathan and his husband. And if they chose to have children, I guess we could meet those too.
I guess we could.
Or maybe just a couple of animals.
Yeah, whatever.
So, yeah, but it was a lot of fun. And I'm excited about that. So that is like the most news we've had in a long time as far as what's happening.
Yeah, I know. We have not heard anything.
No,
it's
not since August.
And just him saying it's in the early stages is good.
Yes.
Because then that means it's still... Because my fear is that it fizzled out.
Right.
But if it's in the early stages, then probably nothing is going on at all.
Yeah, maybe they're just trying to write scripts or
even
build the writing team.
Yeah, maybe see who's going to air it or what. I mean, I guess ABC's going to, right?
I don't think so. It's a Sony.
Oh, it could be anything.
It's being produced by Act 3, which is a Norman Lear company. Same company who puts out One Day at a Time.
Right, so it could be on Netflix.
It could be. That would probably be a dream.
Well, I mean, One Day at a Time was.
It was. It's not anymore. But, yeah, I don't necessarily know that the distribution would match, though. You know, like they would just make the show and then they have to try to sell it.
Right, that's true.
Maybe Paramount Plus.
Maybe.
I'm for that. Okay, so the episode we're going to cover today is season 3, episode 18. It's called The Proposal.
The Proposal.
It aired February 17th, 1987, and the TV Guide summary says, Angela assumes Geoffrey is going to propose when he tells her he has something important to ask her. That's the whole summary. That's all you get. And this was written by Ellen Gillis, who is a name that we have definitely heard before. Yeah. Okay, so when this episode opens, this is another instance where I feel like they kind of don't know what to do with these children who are on the show sometimes.
Yeah.
When the show is not about them.
Right.
So they just
feel like they have to incorporate them somehow.
Right, like they need at least they need 7 minutes of airtime or something, you know. Mm-hmm. So here, Samantha is asking Tony to help her with a math problem. And the math problem is hang on, where is it?
It's train A.
Okay.
What was it? It was train A. There's two trains.
2 trains are 1.5 miles apart. Train A is traveling at 3/4 the speed of train B. They'll collide in 5.5 minutes. How fast is each train going? So, you know what? Shoot, I think I did the math wrong on this now if it really says 5.5 minutes.
1.5 miles apart. Right. 3/4 the speed of train B. They'll collide in
4.5
minutes.
Okay, good. The script is wrong that I have then.
Okay, good.
There's a Who's the Boss group
they actually figured it out
on Facebook, and I asked, I'm like, 1, is this a real math question? And 2, over the years, has anyone actually tried to answer this question? And so one girl did answer the question. She found like some video that gave her the formula that was similar to this. And then with that, she worked it out. And then I was like, I wonder if I could do it since I was a really terrible math student.
Yeah.
But I think I did it.
Really?
Because when I went and checked my answers, they were almost what she had. So I think I was close. But basically all I did was, so train A, they're 1.5 miles apart.
Yeah.
And they're going to meet in 4.5 minutes. And one train is going 3/4 the speed of the other train. So I was like, well, if you're jogging and you jogged 0.75 miles in 4.5 minutes, how fast are you going? And that gave me 10 miles an hour.
Okay.
So then I just added 12.5% to one and subtracted 12.5% from the other. And I got like 11.25 and 8.75 or something like that.
Okay.
And then I went and checked my answers and it was really close. I think I was like a little bit, like hers were like 11.22. She probably had a much more accurate formula.
Yeah, or she was wrong and you were right.
I'm not going to say that.
I know, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, so it appears to be a real math problem. And anyone who got past Algebra 2 probably already knew that and figured it out in like 30 seconds.
Right, and they're frustrated they listen to us talk about it.
But I was very proud of myself.
That's what the plus 30 seconds button's for on the
right
when you're listening.
Yes, if you want to go forward, just hit that. So Samantha's asking this question to Tony, and then she's like, "How am I supposed to figure this out?" And Tony says, "Come on, Sam, I could tell you this in a second."
Right.
But I'm not going to do that because you need to do your own homework. That's such a parent line.
I know, because it's not true.
No, not at all. And now I realize that that's such a parent line. Because even now, when the kids ask us for simple math homework, I just go straight to my calculator because I don't have time to go back and learn my multiplication table.
Well, yeah, we don't.
No.
I mean, we really don't. We're working or doing whatever.
So then he goes over to Mona, who's also in the living room, and she's like, "You couldn't hack it, could you?" And he's like, "I got lost right after train A." But then Mona says, "Oh, I forgot. English is your best subject."
Yeah.
So is she like making fun of Tony here?
I don't know. That was a tough one. I know we were trying to figure that out.
Yeah, because it kind of is a dig because Tony's grammar and pronunciation and grasp of the English language is not the best.
Yeah, I think she maybe kind of came at him a little bit.
And it does get better as the show goes on, but he still uses a lot of slang here. So yeah, I couldn't tell if she... And so then he says, "You ain't just whistling Dixie," or whatever, to show that his grammar's not the best, but uses a phrase that says, "You're right." So I'm very confused by that line. But that's not the first time that Mona would have kind of cut him down a bit, because she's made jokes about his education kind of in the past that I remember pointing out at the time, but I don't remember now. So now
Not nice.
Equal opportunity meanness.
I guess
Mona.
so. Yeah.
Again, I think we've said this before, that sitcom characters are a lot of fun to watch, but maybe not the best people to actually know.
No.
So now Mona goes into the kitchen where Angela's eating chips and onion dip.
I know. It's fantastic.
It
It's very
is.
Angela. It's just sitting there eating. It's great.
And every time I see this, I just want Ruffles and Dean's onion dip because it's so good. So Mona's like, why are you eating onion dip when you're about to go on a romantic date? And she's like, where is Jeff? Or where is what's his name?
Yeah. What's his name?
And Angela says, it's Geoffrey, and he should be here by now. His train must be late. And then Mona says, well, maybe it was train A.
Train
Got to
A.
tie that back in from the living room
I
conversation.
know. And Angela looks at her like she's crazy.
Right, because she has no idea what happened in the living room. So she says, well, I'm eating because I'm nervous, because I feel like Geoffrey is going to ask me something very important. He said he has a question.
The question is the exact words.
Yeah, because she says he has a question
right.
that's going to affect both of our lives. And she says, I think he's going to pop the question.
Sorry.
And then Mona's like, here, have some more onion dip.
I know. Like, nope.
And Angela's like, I know that you don't like him. And she's like, I thought I've hid my contempt pretty well. And Angela's like, you haven't actually spit on him. That's good.
Good point.
But Angela's trying to say, Geoffrey's a wonderful catch. He's successful. He's handsome, intelligent, witty. And she asks her mother, what more could I want from a man? And Mona says, passion, spontaneity, and lust.
I know.
So,
Poor Geoffrey.
I know. She's already trying to tell Angela, like, look, I know that this guy looks good on paper, but really think about this here. And from what we've seen so far, like, Angela likes him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know that she's necessarily in love with him, but she has a decent time with him. We're going to find out, too, though, that these people have not been dating that long.
Right. And they're both kind of nerdy, too.
Oh, they're very nerdy.
Yeah. So they were a good fit.
True. And I honestly think that if Tony wasn't in the picture, she probably would have gone with Geoffrey.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, so now in the living room, Tony's still trying to figure out.
Train A and Train B.
He's got the little, like, bronze pony and a bronze ashtray or whatever that is.
And if you really notice, like before, in the beginning of the episode, he was cleaning that table, that coffee. Look how shiny it is.
It's very shiny.
I mean, it is. It's shiny. The finish, it's like almost you could see a reflection on it.
I saw a
It's
table.
A lot of Pine Sol.
So,
or not Pine Sol. What's the Pledge?
Pledge. Yeah. I saw a table almost exactly like that one at was it a Goodwill? I was at some sort of thrift store with the little leaves that
fold up.
Yes, fold up. The only difference was that it had a glass insert in the middle part over the wood to protect it.
Even classier.
I know. I couldn't believe it though. I was like, I don't love Who's the Boss enough to buy this ugly ass coffee table.
No, we never owned one, but I know a lot of people who do had that coffee table.
I don't think that we had one, but I do remember that seemed like a pretty popular coffee table at the time.
Yeah.
And like, what are the ledges for? Is there some shit going down where stuff's falling off the coffee table?
Well, I think it's like it becomes like a serving tray.
But I mean, are you lifting the entire coffee table?
I don't know. That's all I got.
It doesn't look like that pops off of there.
Yeah, that's all I got.
It's like if you just want to actually dump the chips
like you want to have
into
walls.
the middle of the coffee table.
You want to have walls. Yeah, I don't know.
You could turn the whole thing into a charcuterie board, which wasn't very popular.
Maybe that's where they came from. The idea.
As he's trying to figure out this complicated math question, the doorbell rings, and it's Geoffrey. And he comes in. He's excited to see Tony, my main man. He's calling him.
Right. All of a sudden.
Yeah. So Angela comes in, and she immediately goes upstairs covering her mouth because she's had so much onion dip. So she's probably going upstairs to brush her teeth.
Yeah, she's worried.
Yeah. And Tony's like, she's so cute. Geoffrey's like, she's so cute. And he's like, I don't know what that is, but that must be some new kind of look. She's so cutting edge.
So hip.
Yeah, so hip. And Tony says, yeah, I think she's going to host Saturday Night Live, which is crazy because Saturday Night Live is still as relevant today as it was when this show aired.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I mean,
right. It's not one of those references like remember that show.
Right. No. Remember that show that was on Saturday.
Yeah.
So while Angela's upstairs, Geoffrey says, I want to ask you something because I feel like we've kind of become buddies and, we've gotten close. So I respect your opinion and stuff. So Geoffrey says, I've made a decision that could affect my future with Angela. And Tony's getting a little nervous. He's like, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he says, I'm going to ask her to go in on a timeshare with me in the Catskills. And Tony is visibly relieved.
He's like, whoa.
Oh, thank goodness. I think the closed captioning says, oi.
Oi.
So he is happy that he just realized that Geoffrey's not going to pop the question. He doesn't know anything about the conversation between Mona and Angela in the kitchen. But I think he just started getting nervous when he was talking about asking her an important question.
Right, like he thought he knew where it was going.
Right. So Geoffrey's like, do you think this is rushing their relationship? And Tony's like, no, I'm sure it's fine. Sounds like a great idea. He says, nothing ventured, nothing capital gained.
Yeah,
So Angela comes down the stairs. She's brushed her teeth. She's ready to go. And they're being all like cute and dorky like they normally are as they walk out the front door. He says, what does he say? Your carriage awaits?
Yeah, my dear, or whatever.
Yes.
Something
and then
like
he
that.
says, off to wander in the forest or whatever. And then when they leave, Tony's like, off to barf in the basin. Geoffrey says, off we go to frolic in yon forest.
Frolic in yon forest.
Tony says, off to go to barf in yon basin.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So now we cut to Angela and Geoffrey at the cabin in the Catskills. I know.
Yeah,
you have words about this.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I've got problems with this. No, I just I don't know why you would set everything up on the floor when you have a perfectly good table right there. Because it's just when you go on a picnic, it's so hard to eat off the floor, especially. And they're probably not eating like mozzarella sticks.
Right.
It's probably food that requires forks and knives, and it's probably classy food.
It seems like a much better idea than the execution. But
it's like they're all like, oh, we're on the floor,
right? We're having a little picnic,
romantic by the fire.
Yes, there is a raging
the coffee
fire.
Table at least.
He's got some candles lit.
Yeah.
And Angela says, it's just like you to pick the perfect setting. So he goes into his spiel and he's like, we've been seeing each other now for 116 days.
I know. He has it to the
yes. But
to the day.
116 days is like nothing. 3.5 months.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Let's calm down here. But again, it's sitcom time. And we're going to have even shorter timelines of people wanting to get married coming up in future episodes. So it's just really silly. But so, he's telling her we're perfect for each other. We fit just like this tongue and groove floor.
I know. And he slaps the floor. Right. Or no, that was
earlier. He slapped the floor to show it was nice and solid.
Right.
So Angela's starting to think, okay, this is it. Here it comes. So she's like, hang on. Not yet. She gets up and she goes around.
Oh, hang on. Before that, he says, he uses the joke, nothing.
Oh, right. Yes, that's why I brought up the joke. Thank you for catching that.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
he says it.
Right, but it's so out of context, but she thinks it's the funniest. Like, she doesn't know he's going to ask. The reason why Tony said it, was because they were talking about investing in a timeshare.
Right.
And you make capital gains on that, I guess. So,
but he knows what he's about to say. She doesn't know.
I know, but she laughs like, "Oh, you're so clever." But why would he say that?
But then he also steals Tony's joke.
Yeah,
he says, "I just came up with that."
I know, but he does say he's going to use it later. But yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
he does say it just came to me, which is a lie. Yes. But he does. He does tell Tony. He warns him he's going to use it.
Right. True.
So I don't know. It's just funny.
Yeah, but he thinks he's being clever leading up to the fact that he's going to ask about the timeshare. And she has no idea what's going on, but she's probably so nervous at this point, she's just laughing at whatever.
Yeah.
So she gets up and she goes around because she wants to be sitting in front of the fireplace when he asks her.
Yeah,
and she's like,
got to be the right lighting.
Right. She's fixing her hair. She's pinching her cheeks. Mm-hmm. And then she like crosses her arms all ridiculously demurely across herself and waits. And then she says, oh, go ahead. So he goes ahead and he says, Angela, my love, will you be my partner in this timeshare?
Yeah. Which she was not expecting.
No, not at all. So she's like, that's what you wanted to ask me about a timeshare? And he's saying, like, this is great. This is really going to like bring us closer. We'll actually own something together. It's the next step of our relationship. I mean, truly, it's been 3.5 months. So,
right.
I mean, that's a decent step for 3.5 months.
Yeah, it is.
We don't need...
Why would she think he's going to propose?
I don't know. And this is one of the main problems I have with Angela in this episode is like they set it up as if she really wants him to propose.
Right.
And then he doesn't propose and then she's upset. So as he's going on trying to talk about the timeshare, she lights the paper that he's holding on fire.
I know. It's very rude.
With the candle. And so then they cut to Mona in the kitchen eating a hoagie or a sub or a sandwich, whatever you'd say, wherever you live in the country. And watching what you might think is a fight, but then it turns out to be she's just watching the news because she says that Ted Koppel's getting real good.
I know. Mash him, bash him. That's a hell of a hoagie, too.
It really is.
That's some sandwich.
It looks good. I would eat that. And there's like an enormous jar of mayonnaise on the table as well. Mona
sandwich didn't make itself.
Mona likes to eat late at night and then not gain any weight.
Yeah, that's her thing.
Yeah. So Tony comes in and he's like, what are you doing here? You can't sleep? And she's like, well, I figured I would just wait and see how Angela's night went. And Tony's like, oh, you mean because of the big question? So Mona's like, oh, well, you know what he's going to ask her? And he's like, yeah, he says, Geoffrey and I are like this. And he holds his fingers as far apart from each other as possible, which I thought was very funny. Yeah. I like that joke. And Mona's like, well, this doesn't bother you? And he's like, well, why would it bother me? If it doesn't work out, she can just put it right back on the market. Classic sitcom misunderstanding.
I was just about to say, very misunderstanding sitcom, Three's Company style. Yes.
And Mona's like, you aren't going to be upset if Angela marries Geoffrey. And now Tony realizes that they're talking about two different things.
Right.
And he's like, what? They're not getting married. He's just going to ask her if she wants to go in on a timeshare with him.
But hang on. Here's the other thing. Why would she come back tonight?
That's a good question. I know, because they... I
mean, originally I thought she came back because
she's mad.
She was mad.
And wanted to go home.
But Mona's expecting her back.
Yeah, that's true. That doesn't make sense. That they would go to the cabin and not spend the night.
Right, because it's not close. It's got to be at least an hour away. It's in the mountains. It's in
at least
New
it's
York.
not in Maine like last time. Yeah, that's a really good point. I don't know.
It doesn't make any sense. You think they would be staying there if they're thinking about...
They totally probably would have planned to stay there. And then if they did come home...
It's 2 hours and 32 minutes from Connecticut to the Catskill Mountains.
Wow. Okay, so they went there. They made that little picnic.
Drank some wine. And then we're going to drive back.
And then she got pissed and they came home. But they were planning to come home.
That's my point. Yeah, right. Because Mona's waiting.
Right. Yeah, maybe it would have been better if Mona just said, like, she just was thinking about Angela's.
Yeah, sorry,
whatever.
I'm overanalyzing. I guess she wouldn't have an episode because what happens next makes sense.
I love the next lines from Mona, which is, "Oh no, Angela thought he was going to propose. My poor stupid baby."
I know. Oh, God.
It's like she really okay. We know Mona cares because one, she was waiting up to see what happened. And two, even though she doesn't like Geoffrey, and two, she is upset for her poor stupid baby.
I know, she is. She still has to know what happened.
So Mona's like, she's going to come back here totally crushed, and she's really going to need someone to talk to. Good night, Tony.
Yeah, she's like, I'm out.
And
I like that Tony puts the mayonnaise and the mustard away.
Oh, yeah, because Mona was just going to leave that there.
Yeah.
There's no way she was going to put that away. So she tells Tony, basically, good luck. You'll be talking to her when she gets home.
Good night.
Because I'm out.
Yeah.
And now, when Angela and Geoffrey come in the house, Tony is asleep on the couch in the living room. So I guess he really was planning to wait up for her until she got home. And then
just got to make sure she gets home safe.
Yeah, and then fell asleep. So they come in, and she's...
After driving 2 hours and 32 minutes.
Yeah, and it must be pretty late because he's fallen asleep on the couch. And she's still mad. So they haven't hashed any of this out in the car.
In the 2 hour and 32 minute drive, nobody talked.
It was a silent ride home.
Yeah, she's pissed.
Right? So they come in the door, and he's like, Angela, will you at least talk to me? You haven't said a word since you set me on fire or tried to set me on fire.
So they really have not talked.
And she tells him to shh because everyone is sleeping. And, he's like, I don't understand what happened. I took you to this romantic spot. We had a great time. I made a terrific proposal. And she walks away when he says the word proposal. So he's like, oh. And then he realizes, you thought I was going to propose. And she says, no, I didn't. Now, Tony has woken up on the couch, and he's hearing this whole thing, and no one can see him. Because on TV, when you're 7 feet away from someone and they're sleeping on the couch, you do not see that.
Well, it could just be a pile of blankets there. He is covered.
That is true. He's covered with a blanket that we've never seen on the couch before. Nope. But maybe they just laid that out.
Well, he cleans the house. He knows where all the blankets are.
Grover threw up earlier, and Tony was trying to cover it up. So they continue to have this conversation while Tony's listening. And she's like, he says, so Geoffrey's like, wait a minute, you would actually consider a marriage proposal from me? And she says, I might have a couple of hours ago. And so he's like, well, I absolutely will marry you. And she's like, I didn't ask. So
it's like, come on.
This is where I really start to get annoyed with Angela in this episode, because... So it's not that Geoffrey doesn't want to marry her. He absolutely does want to marry her.
Right, but he probably thought it's too early.
Right, it's too early.
Let me start with the timeshare.
Right. Let's ease into this. We'll get this together, and then it's like moving in first, And then when he realizes that is what she wants, then he's like, okay, well, I'm all in because I totally would marry you.
Right.
So he asks her... She says, I didn't ask you. And he's like, well, I'm asking you. I'll get down on my knee. I'll get down on both knees. Will you marry me? And she says, I have to think about it. So Tony, again, is still listening. And he's waiting to hear Angela. When Geoffrey first asks, he's sitting there waiting to hear Angela's response. And then when he hears, I have to think about it, he again is visibly relieved. So... Geoffrey's like, okay, that's fine. You go ahead and you think about it. And as he leaves, he's singing some ridiculous song about her dainty fingertips.
I know. In your dreams, I kiss your damn. I wonder what that is. We didn't look it up.
We did not. But I only have to bring it up because then Tony's going to bring it up again. So now Angela's like confused and a little upset. And she goes over to the couch and sits down on top of Tony. And he now has to show. Because she
did not see him.
No, still did not see him on the couch. It must be very dark in this living room. So she's like, oh, Tony. And she says, you must have heard all of that. And he's like, oh, I just heard about the dainty fingertips. And then he's like, I heard a little bit before that about Will You Marry Me? But that's really it. That's all I heard.
I think it's a song by Vic Damone.
Oh, that sounds about right.
Yeah. And it's called I Kiss Your Hand, Madam.
Yes, because that's what the first line he says is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm going to confirm it. Yep, your dainty fingered.
Yeah.
In dreams, I kiss your hand, madam, your dainty fingertips. And while in slumberland, madam, I'm begging for your lips.
Oh, dear.
Okay. I took a turn.
Sorry, Geoffrey. So Angela's like, well, you must have... you saw how surprised I was, because I guess she's hoping that he also didn't hear the part where she thought he was going to propose and he didn't.
Right.
And he's like, yeah. So they're kind of sitting there in like a little bit of awkward silence. And then she says, well, I'm going to go upstairs and get some sleep. And he says, all right, well, I'm going to go ahead and lock up. So he stands up to say something to her, and she turns around, and then he just says goodnight.
Yep. Another awkward moment.
I know. And he goes over to the front door, and
then it's bizarre keyboard time.
Yes, it is bizarre keyboard time. Hang on. There it is. Cheesy keyboard. That's some classic. That's some good 80s stuff.
Very 80s.
Yeah, I really like that. So this music is playing as Tony's kind of looking up at Angela as she's gone upstairs. Now,
yeah, it tells you it's a touching moment.
Yeah, I mean, Tony's in love with her at this point.
Yeah.
I don't think we can really say that he isn't anymore.
Music should tell you that.
I mean, like, I think it was kind of infatuation or whatever for a while. And I think maybe he was hoping if he, like, pushed her towards Geoffrey, it would get whatever it was out of his system. But I think that backfired on him.
Yeah.
And at this point, he's in love with her. So now Angela goes upstairs to her bedroom.
Which is completely different than I remember it.
It is, yes. So the last time we saw this bedroom, I think it was
the bed was against the wall. The other wall had a canopy, right?
Yes, it had like that macrame thing that sometimes was on there and sometimes wasn't, but it was always like a 4-poster bed, and it was against the wall where the dresser is now.
I mean, don't get me wrong, she had the room redone. What are you going to do?
Yeah. But yeah, it is interesting why they would change the set. Like, I guess they broke down the other set.
Maybe.
And then when they went to redo a bedroom set, they were like, well, let's just do this instead of keeping all of the stuff. And I mean, maybe that's the same bed with just not as many of the posts. And then, so there used to be the rocking chair with a Raggedy Ann doll. And now there's a creepy doll that will kill you in your sleep.
Now the doll looks like Raggedy Ann was in a fire. And something terrible happened because it is the creepiest looking doll.
Super creepy doll. So she goes into her bedroom. The keyboard music's going.
Yeah.
She sits down and she's kind of thinking. She's looking at her finger where an engagement ring would go.
Mm-hmm.
And she's thinking. Now downstairs, Tony is kind of just sitting on the couch watching TV still. And it's like that old-timey TV where I think it really wasn't programming anymore, right? It was just like information.
Yeah.
Was this leading up to the space shuttle going off and then color bars?
Well, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Or it was just one of those shows that are like, they used to have this thing called the Farm Report. It was like an agriculture report.
That
and
must
then
be
the guy
what
would,
that is.
and those always aired really early in the morning.
Okay.
Because people would want to watch them before they went fishing or went out and did anything or did the farmers. Yeah,
it's saying like high tide and
the
low
one that I
tide.
remember was the Farm Report, and they would watch it before they would go out and do farming stuff. So that, I mean, and the guy's like, high tide tomorrow will be 419, blah, blah, blah. So.
So while he's doing that, Angela comes back down the stairs and looks at Tony and is about to say something to him or ask him something, and then kind of decides not to and goes back upstairs. So, I mean, I feel like Angela's just looking for a reason not. Is she looking for Tony to be like, don't marry this guy? Or
I don't know.
Does she just want to talk to him about it?
I don't know.
That's why.
But you think he would have heard her come down the stairs?
Yeah, that's true. And I can't tell if she thinks he's asleep, which is why she doesn't bother him, or if she just chickens out and then goes back upstairs. So now it's the next morning.
Mm-hmm.
And Angela's in the kitchen. She's got a pad and a pen in front of her. She's writing something down. The kids come in. She's like, oh, you guys are up bright and early. And Jonathan says, Sam's letting me come to the lake with her and the big kids to play. So he's very excited. And she's like, oh, well, that's great. And she asked Sam, like, can you go get a head start and can I talk to Jonathan? He'll be there in a minute. And Sam's like, okay. Oh, no, he says they're going to play Crack the Whip. And she's like, well, I guess we can find somebody else to crack for a while.
Yeah, we all know what's going to happen to Jonathan down there.
It's just terror. So, I mean, I don't we didn't grow up anywhere cold. I have no idea if Crack the Whip's a real game. It probably is.
Well, now I'm going to have to find out.
So as Samantha leaves, she sits Jonathan down and she says, I want to talk to you about Geoffrey. And Jonathan says, you mean what's his face? And Angela's like, stop that. And he says, well, that's what Grandma calls him. And she's like, never mind what Grandma calls him. So she wants to know, like, what would you think? Do you like Geoffrey? What would you think if he was around more often? And Jonathan's like, he's okay. Like, he never yells at me, and he gives me really good investment advice.
Investment advice.
And she's like, well, maybe you guys should try to spend a little more time together. Maybe go to a baseball game or, hang out. And Jonathan's like, well, I already do that with Tony. So...
Oh, see?
Yeah. And then she's like, well, maybe you guys can work on your taxes together. So Jonathan's like, okay, well, this was a good conversation, but can I go? Because my long johns are starting to itch. So she's like, sure. And she lets him go. Now, the phone starts ringing. And I guess she's assuming it's Geoffrey. So she's ignoring the phone and she's going back to her list. Tony, eagle ears, outside, can hear the phone ringing.
No, and he comes in like the place is on fire.
Right. Yeah.
I wonder why, though. Like, she's got to ask Jonathan about Geoffrey. Like, you know or you don't,
Oh,
you know
or
you
of
don't.
course.
You're not going to ask your kid.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it is different when you have, like, children to consider. Mm-hmm. But also, yes, it is kind of, it would be more of like sitting Jonathan down and being like, listen, Geoffrey's going to be around more often, and so maybe you guys should hang out because he's going to be moving in or something, and not so much like, so do you like him? Like, it is strange that she's asking.
Right. That's, yeah.
So Tony answers the phone, and it's Geoffrey on the phone. So he's like, oh, yeah, she's right here. But Angela's like, no, and she does the sign for I'm in the shower.
Right.
And then Tony goes over to the sink with a very long phone cord, goes over to the sink, turns on the faucet, and he's like, she's in the shower. And then he says, no, I'm not in there with her.
Right. But why would he make the faucet sound?
I know. Just
Doesn't
trying
make
to
any
sell
sense.
it, yes.
Yeah.
But it would make it seem as if he was at least in the bathroom to be able to hear the water.
Right.
So he says, she'll give you a call back, and he hangs up the phone. So he asks Angela what she's doing. And she says, I'm making a list, and I'm making one column has all the pros and one column has all the cons. And I'm going through and like trying to figure out if I should get married to Geoffrey or not. So, yeah. And
that's one way to do it.
Right. Her pros are he's a member of the Audubon Society. He's so witty.
Witty.
And I almost forgot he's a great cook. And Tony's like, really? And she says, yes, he's an even better cook than I am. Which everyone knows Angela's a terrible cook.
Right.
So Tony says, that's one bake-off I wouldn't want to miss.
I know. Could be terrible.
And she says, the only cons I have is that he overindulges me. And like, Tony's annoyed and he wants to just kind of say what's on his mind here, but he's trying to be polite about it. Now, the other thing to consider is, I guess Geoffrey is like kind of, I don't want to say like submissive, but he's like enough of a pushover where I think Angela could probably convince him to move into this house and still let Tony be the housekeeper.
Yeah, that's possible.
But like, you would think that in any other situation, if one of them gets married, they're no longer going to live in this house. So I guess if she's considering this with the idea that Geoffrey's going to let Tony stay, she's also making a decision as to whether or not they're still going to have this family situation that they have if Geoffrey doesn't want him to stay, which is true. Michael didn't want him to stay. No one should want him to stay because he's very hot and he's in love with your wife. Yeah. So he's going over more stuff and he's like, okay, well, what does he know about around doing stuff around the house? Like, is he going to put laundry detergent in the dishwasher? And Angela says, of course he will. He knows what he's doing.
Which that tells you she doesn't.
Exactly. Don't let Angela near the dishwasher.
No.
she would have
Be suds everywhere.
I know, a mess. Okay, so then Angela says, well, what I'm thinking more along the lines of is husband qualities, like the type of qualities that you would want in a partner. So Tony's like, okay, well, then how is he in the garage?
Yeah.
And she's like, what? And he's like, a man should be able to fulfill your automotive needs. And he's really kind of fishing here.
Yeah, but she's just not getting it.
So do you think she's not getting it, or is she just playing him?
I don't know, because she looks very uptight.
I really think she doesn't get it.
Yeah, when she says he has his own metric tool set.
Yeah,
and she looks very serious.
That's not a problem.
I think she would laugh a little bit or smile.
Right.
I mean, she just is. It's very tense
and
conversation.
And she may really think that he's being serious because she knows how intense Geoffrey is around cars.
Right.
So Tony's like, okay, whatever, So you go ahead and do this. So, Angela says, it looks like Geoffrey has a lot to offer. And Tony's like, well, if this guy was such a great deal, then why didn't you just say yes when he asked you? And
exactly.
Yes. And Angela says, you don't rush into these kind of things. You have to think them through. But I kind of feel, I don't want to say this out loud in case it's ever happened to anyone, but if someone has to think about a marriage proposal, I think that might be the first indication that maybe this shouldn't happen.
I think so. Yeah.
So then Tony basically says, when I asked Marie to marry me, she didn't think about anything. She just told her parents, I'm marrying Tony, and jumped in my arms, and that was it.
Yeah.
It's like she didn't care that I didn't have a great job, or, she didn't have a list of pros and cons. She just knew that she wanted to be with me. And Angela's like, well, that's really sweet, but you guys were young. And he says yes, and we were in love. So he's basically pointing out to Angela that if you were in love with him, you wouldn't have a question here.
Right.
So she's still kind of badgering him even after this. And I don't understand, this is what really kind of annoys me about her in this episode is she thinks he's going to marry, she thinks he's going to ask her. She wants him to ask her, it appears.
Right.
When he doesn't ask her, she gets upset.
Right.
Then he does ask her. And now
she says maybe.
Right.
I don't know.
And now she's badgering Tony to basically give her a reason not to marry him.
Right.
And Tony just can't do it. Again, Tony Danza has said this before, that his motivation for playing this part is that he's in love with her, but he cannot picture that he's ever going to be good enough for her. So he's keeping himself out of the equation and whatever he has to do to make her happy otherwise.
Yeah.
So
it's a lot of sacrificing, I guess.
I know. It is. And honestly, I feel like at this point, if there hadn't been the whole, TV sitcom, should they get together? Shouldn't they get together? If these were just real people, it's kind of ridiculous that at this point that they don't progress to a relationship for 4 more years.
I know. I keep forgetting that. I feel like any day now.
Right?
Every episode we watch, it's going to happen here.
Right. The next season at least you would think would be them.
Something's got to give.
Right.
No.
And I think there's even an article, I have to see if I can find it. I can post it on Instagram years ago where they were talking to Judith Light about it. And I think it was leading into the 4th season. And she was like, I think stuff's going to start heating up now. And she's like, I know that if it was me, I wouldn't have been able to wait that long. So I just think it's funny that these shows can drag this stuff out. And also we're leading up to where we are in February of 87. So we are leading up to May of 1987, which is when David and Maddie got together on Moonlighting. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, really kind of burned shows from that point on.
Right, because there's nowhere else to go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's called the Moonlighting Curse. Mm. And things went downhill severely for Moonlighting after David and Maddie got together. But there were a lot of other factors, and we can get into that when it gets a little closer to that time. But yes, I think a lot of shows were gun shy after that. Okay, so as Angela's kind of badgering him here, she says to him, after he makes the comment about we were in love, she says, love does not a marriage make.
Right, love alone.
Love alone does not a marriage make.
She's Yoda all of a sudden. Which that's kind of ridiculous.
So not only is she badgering him to tell her why she shouldn't marry Geoffrey, all Tony has to offer her is love. And so she's basically saying that the one thing he has to offer her is not enough to make a marriage. But please tell me why I shouldn't marry this man.
Is this episode almost over?
So she says, you're my friend and your opinion really matters to me. And he's like, I'm not just your friend. I'm also your housekeeper.
Yep.
So I don't know if he was planning on saying something there, but he chickened out.
Yeah, he did. But I mean, what I'm confused at on the next scene, why is she suddenly sick?
Yeah.
With no explanation.
Well, because she says to him, okay, well, I guess I have my answer. Then it's all written down here on paper.
Right.
And now that I know what my answer is, I feel great. And then it cuts to her being sick.
I didn't catch. How did I miss that?
And we've seen this with Angela before. Remember when the horrible thing happened in Paint Your Wagon with Jim Peterson? She ended up having like a cold and couldn't go to work the next day. So
it's a thing.
Yeah. So I'm surprised her hair is not in pigtails here.
I know.
That would have really tied it all together. So the next day she isn't feeling well. She's on the phone. Oh my gosh, that is the actual
phone.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So last year, I dressed one of our daughters up like Angela Bauer, and we couldn't find a red phone, but we had a beige phone that my husband was able to borrow from work. And so that we call it the Angela Bauer phone.
Yep.
And that is the exact one. Okay, so she's on the phone with her doctor, and he's telling her, you need to rest your voice and stuff. So she hangs up with him, and Tony says, what did he say? And she's like, I need to not talk. I need to rest and all this stuff. And he's like, okay, well, then shut up because you're talking too much.
Doctor's orders.
Yes.
That's what he said.
He does. So now Geoffrey comes to her bedroom door, and he's yelling through it, are you decent? Which, I mean, haven't these people had sex?
I don't know.
We know they rub noses.
I guess. I mean, you don't want to walk in and...
No, I know. Yeah.
It's the decent thing to do.
Yeah. And I guess he doesn't realize that Tony's already in there.
Right.
So, yeah, because then he says, are you decent? And Tony says, yes. And he says, you sound terrible. And the first time we watched that, our kids laughed so hard at that part. They thought that was the funniest thing. So Geoffrey comes in. It is funny. Geoffrey comes in and Tony leaves to give them some privacy. And, Geoffrey's like, when you didn't answer my call, I didn't want to seem too anxious, but I ran right over because I couldn't take it any longer, and I just need to know your answer. And it's like, I don't need to know your answer right now, except that I really need to know your answer right now. So now they cut away and they go downstairs to where Tony's coming down the steps and Mona's coming in the house.
Right. Dressed to the nines.
Yeah, where is she going? Or where did she come from?
Who knows? Shopping.
Or maybe she's getting ready to go to work, although Angela's not going. I don't know. So, or it's a weekend. That's true. Jeffrey's there. Who knows?
Figure it out.
So, and Tony says, it looks like you're going to be a mother-in-law again. And she's like, what? And he explains that Geoffrey's upstairs proposing and Angela's upstairs accepting. So Mona's like, well, then why aren't you up there breaking this up? And he's like, what am I supposed to do? This is her decision. And she says, you're going to leave something this important up to Angela? So Tony's like, well, then why don't you go up there and talk to her? And she's like, she's not going to listen to me. I'm her mother.
Yeah, it's a good line.
Right. And Tony's like, this isn't my place. And it really isn't Tony's place not. At all. I mean,
no, it's not at all.
It's an uncomfortable position to put him in to begin with. So,
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No. I this should wait.
Oh, but I do need to mention, and now we get a really good shot of them. The pink flower, there are pink roses on Angela's dresser, and they have been there this entire episode. So when she came upstairs from the night that he didn't propose, those pink roses were on her dresser. And they are there now.
Oh,
so
fancy.
this is Tony still being like, these are your favorite flowers. You're going to find them everywhere.
Yep.
There's probably some in the bathroom.
Yep,
the
everywhere.
Kitchen, dining room. So Geoffrey's, still trying to get an answer out of Angela. And he's like, I'm not trying to pressure you. And she's like, okay, well, thank you for that. Even though you're standing over me asking for an answer.
Right, but he says, I'm not trying to press you, but I need to have your answer now.
And once again, the lighting on Judith's face in this scene is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Her skin looks flawless. She looks really pretty in this scene as she breaks this poor man's heart. So Geoffrey's like, just what do you say? We're great together. He's telling her all these things. Now, Tony has gotten a ladder out. He's on the outside of the house. He's climbing up the ladder on the outside, and he's spray painting the word no on her window and waving his arms in the air like a madman. And then once the no's on the window, he's putting his face in the O.
I know, so ridiculous.
Yes.
Well, what I was going to say about this scene is now I know why the room was rearranged, because this would not have worked with the window
Yes.
if the bed was on the other side of the wall.
Absolutely.
So as I'm looking at this, I'm like, this would have never worked the other
You're
way
right.
because you couldn't have a window. There wouldn't have been a window on the other wall. I don't know.
No, you're
the only way
absolutely
this
right.
scene
They would
works.
have.
Now we know why
Yes.
the room is rearranged. I just realized that, and I realized that a couple of seconds
Yep.
ago. But-
No, that totally makes sense. You're right. So she says finally, Geoffrey, the answer is on, which is so dumb.
I know.
But it's because
That's some
Tony wrote
sitcom
no.
humor there,
I know. Tony wrote no on the window backwards so he can read it. So she reads on. And then she says to Geoffrey, you deserve someone. You shouldn't be with someone because it looks good on paper. You deserve someone who's going to jump in your arms and shout yes. And he says, I don't want that. I want you.
Right over his head.
And she says, you deserve someone who's going to make you happy. And he says, you do make me happy. It's you that's still searching.
Yeah.
So, as much as I don't want her to be with Geoffrey, I do kind of feel bad for this poor schmo at this point.
I know.
Because he really got the runaround this episode,
He got
for
put
sure.
through the ringer in
Yeah.
this episode.
And, honestly, she never probably felt that much for him and was just trying to this whole time. So I do feel bad for him.
Yeah.
So she's like, I'm sorry. Oh, and he's like, okay, well, if you need more time to think about it, that's fine. And she's like, no, it's going to be the same answer today, tomorrow. The answer is not going to change.
Right.
So he realizes that this is over. He says, we're not going to see each other anymore, are we? And she says, no. So this is Robin Thomas's last episode. Everyone say goodbye to Robin Thomas. So then, were you going to say something?
Well, nothing. He just says, I guess the timeshare's out of the question. Too.
Right,
It's
yeah.
kind of funny.
So then he leaves. And then Angela has I don't know what the papers are in her hand. I don't remember.
It's his list. He wrote a list.
Oh, he wrote a list also.
Yeah.
Okay, got
He
it.
said, I made a list, and then he gives it to her.
Right. Okay, so she's just wistfully looking in the other direction and puts the list down on the bed.
Right.
There's still a man at your bedroom window.
Right. Yeah.
On a ladder in the freezing cold. So then they go to commercial and come back, and then Tony's banging on the window, and she's like, oh, and she gets up and lets him in.
Yeah, she forgot.
You're right. And she's like, you must be freezing. And he's like, oh, your voice sounds better. And she says, well, I got my voice back when I said no.
Yeah.
So he says, I guess you're not going to marry him. She's not going to marry him. And he's very happy. So, again, no man is going to go to your bedroom window and spray paint no or on.
Right, on the window.
To keep you from marrying someone if they're not, way into you. So
Right.
it's just ridiculous that at this point, these two aren't making out. So she tells him, you are right, and you can't, these things aren't made with a list, you have to feel them and stuff. And she even makes a little Italian,
Right.
she tries to make the Italian sign, and Well, not Italian sign, but an Italian hand gesture as she's saying it. But she's doing it upside down, and so he puts it back the right way. And I feel bad for Tony in this part too, because he's kind of just like awkward and like shy and sweet, and it's all kind of like I'm happy that this happened, but again, there's a lot of stuff in this episode that's so awkward. But okay. So then that is it.
That's the episode. Yeah, because there's no tag.
Yeah, there isn't a tag. Huh?
Yeah,
that's just it.
It runs right into the credits. Yeah.
That's interesting. I wonder if there was never...
The tag was kind of looped in with the final scene.
Yeah, you're right. The last time they did that was a season finale, so that is interesting that they did that here. So at the end of this episode, we're going to play a song called Paperboy by a singer named Olivia Bandy, who's also a listener of this podcast. And it is based on the Angela and Geoffrey relationship. And it is a beautiful song, and she has a beautiful voice. So we'll play that at the very end, and then I'll also tell you where you can get her album. So, okay, do you want to go first? I have a feeling you're going to rate this really harshly.
Am I doing ratings or boss? What rating first? Yeah, I mean, I'm going kind of low. It's like 6.5.
Okay, well that's
6.5.
Not terrible.
Yeah, it just wasn't. I mean, I just felt like that they all of a sudden realized they needed to do something with Geoffrey when they knew he wasn't staying. I don't know. It just seemed abrupt, but
yeah.
But I mean, I guess it was the best way to get rid of him. You know, I'm proposed, and she says no, and then that's because you can't go anywhere from there.
Right.
You're going to work it out. So, I don't know. I just thought it was like really abrupt, but maybe that's just maybe they always intended to do it that way.
And I think we've had
because there were like episodes in between that he wasn't on.
Right.
Like if he was really in the picture, he'd have been around.
But didn't we have this conversation before where when we were kids, we thought that Geoffrey was on longer?
Yes.
Like thinking back, I always felt like Geoffrey stuck around for like a whole season.
Well, if you're watching in real time, he was there for 2 months.
I guess so. Yeah.
It was like enough episodes where it was, you know what I'm saying? Like if you're, I don't know. It probably did. It did feel like, but everybody did, I think. And like when you look at an old show, sometimes I think, wow, that person was on. Or I'll always think, oh, I did not realize they're on like the first season. Or
yes, we've had that conversation before too.
Yeah.
We're always surprised when something happens.
That's
so
already
early
happened,
in the show, right? Yeah. Okay, so I gave this one a 7. It's just mostly because of the Angela and Tony stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I really kind of feel like they kind of made Angela an asshole to get to this point.
I didn't cover that because I knew you were going to.
And
so,
if the proposal had been a surprise to Angela, then I would have felt a little more compassion for her being worried about making the list and all that stuff.
Yeah.
If they had somehow led up to the proposal with that in a different way than they did, then Angela thinking he's going to propose and he doesn't, and she gets mad, and then he does, and then she's all confused because then she just seems really wishy-washy.
Right, which is stupid because so if he would have proposed in the first place, she would have said yes.
I don't know. That's the thing, right?
Because she was ready for it.
Right. She like got herself
it just didn't make sense.
She pinched her cheeks and everything.
Right.
And wrapped her arms around herself.
Sat in front of the fireplace holding a glass of wine.
Right. So I don't know if she was then planning to be like, I have to think about it. She just wanted him to propose.
Yeah, I just didn't get it.
Who's the boss around here? Me? Or my mother? Or maybe it's you?
Tony's the boss here. Poor Tony. I just, he told Angela pretty much, you don't love this guy. And that still didn't sink in. And then he had to get out a ladder and go to her bedroom and wave his arms around like a madman. And I just feel bad for him because I do think that he's in love with her here. And, she was kind of like almost badgering him to tell her that he was in love with him, even though he's not ready to. And
Angela got it wrong this whole episode.
I know. Her poor stupid baby.
I know. Poor stupid baby.
So I went with Tony.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Tony's definitely the boss. He kept it together this whole episode. Once again, he could have derailed. He had every opportunity to derail Geoffrey, but he still helped him. Except for in the end, he spray painted no on the thing. Right. But he was just doing what he knew was best for Angela.
And at that point, it was a mercy killing for Geoffrey. Let this poor man go home and start his healing process because this is
he knew
painful.
it was the right thing to do at the time.
Right,
But yeah, once again, Tony, he tried his best.
As much as I want Tony and Angela to get together, I really hope that Tony went to Brooklyn and had some sex for a while after this one, because he deserved it.
Yeah, he did.
And a few beers.
Get out of town. Yeah. Brooklyn.
All right, so you can reach us at the Who's the Boss podcast on Instagram, Who's the Boss Pod 1 on Twitter, or on Facebook. We have a page called the Who's the Boss podcast page, or go to anchor.fm/WTB podcast, and there you can leave us a voice message. Okay, so the next episode we're going to cover...
you don't like this one.
Diet in Cell Block 11. James Coco is back as Samantha's grandfather, which his episodes are never my favorite, but I'm gonna go. I'm gonna see. Maybe I'll change my mind. So that is next time. And okay, song for the end. Again, it's by Olivia Bandy. It's called Paperboy, and she has an EP on Apple Music, Spotify. You can also listen to it on YouTube called Here to Home that I recommend. She has such a beautiful voice. So that's all. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Enjoy.
Bye.
If you like this podcast, please subscribe and give a big thumbs up and tell all your friends. And maybe you can tell your grandma, your mother, and your sister or brother. Maybe you have no siblings. Tell your dog and cats. Bye.
You wouldn't be reckless. Take me somewhere we've never been. You wouldn't leave me guessing, just to sweep me off my feet again. I'm not gonna seal my fate and take the bait just to check off another box. I'm gonna save my time, gonna save the dates before we end up something that we're not. Your name looks good on paper, boy, written next to mine, but I don't like what I'm reading, boy, in between the lines. I have every detailed piece laid out, but I can't make them fit. I'm writing all the reasons it should be love, but you can't base love on a list. Can't fuse it, can't force it. I wish we could, but we don't have a choice. When we only work on Paperboy. It's all in the secrets, sharing the things that we only know. I wanna jump into your arms, because I can't wait not to put on a show. It's not fair to you, always the one who's getting hurt. Someone deserves you more than I do, and I promise you're gonna find her. Your name looks good on paper, boy, written next to mine, but I don't like what I'm reading, boy, in between the lines. I have every detailed piece laid out, but I can't make them fit. I'm writing all the reasons it should next to mine. And I don't like what I'm reading, boy, in between the lines. Your name looks good on Paperboy, written next to mine. But I don't like what I'm reading, boy, in between the lines. I have every detailed piece laid out, but I can't make them fit. Writing all the reasons it should be love, but you can't base love on a list. Can't fuse it, can't force it.